Blanchard Norman had always been a beacon of hope in the trenches, his songs a constant reminder of brighter days. Each morning, his voice would rise above the gloom, singing about the beauty and hope in the world. Adolf Charlie, his closest friend, didn't share Blanchard's optimism. For Adolf, the trench was a place devoid of any joy, a stark contrast to Blanchard's melodies. Blanchard, Adolf, and Ernest Clarence shared a small, cramped dugout on the front line. The recent death of their friend Everett, who had succumbed to trench foot and fever, was a stark reminder of their fragile existence. Everett's death had deeply affected Blanchard. It wasn't just the loss of a friend. It was a chilling reminder of his own mortality. One particularly cold morning, the chill seemed to seep into their bones. Blanchard's singing was abruptly silenced by Adolf's sharp command. It was nearly 5 a.m., and the routine stand to arms was about to begin. Ernest, who cherished his letters and books, reluctantly set them aside and readied his rifle. As they stepped into the foggy, frigid air, Blanchard's usual cheerfulness was replaced with a quiet resolve. The stand to arms was brief that morning. Lieutenant Edgar Walter's command to stand down was a relief to Adolf, who despised the long periods of standing still. The rum ration followed, though Blanchard, as usual, found no comfort in the drink, passing his share to Adolf instead. The cold and the fog made visibility poor, and the ever-present threat of shelling kept them on edge. Adolf preferred patrolling over standing on the fire step, believing it to be a safer option. The fire step was where many met their end, either from enemy snipers or sudden raids. One day, Private Morris brought a letter for Blanchard. It was from his wife, announcing the birth of their daughter, Dorothy. Blanchard's joy was palpable, but it was quickly overshadowed by a deep sadness. He longed to see his daughter, a desire that seemed almost impossible to fulfill in the midst of war. Colonel Arnold Toney's inspection interrupted their brief respite. He ordered the men to keep busy. Blanchard, eager to distract himself from his worries, quickly found a task. Adolf, on the other hand, was sent to fetch Lieutenant Edgar. Arriving at the lieutenant's dugout, Adolf's curiosity got the better of him. An open letter lay on the bed, and he couldn't resist reading it. Just as he finished, Lieutenant Edgar appeared, catching him in the act. Furious, the lieutenant ordered Adolf out with a stern warning. Back in their dugout, Blanchard was in tears, overwhelmed by the thought of never seeing his daughter. Ernest tried to comfort him, reminding Blanchard that they all had loved ones waiting for them. But the fear of dying without seeing Dorothy again weighed heavily on Blanchard's heart. That evening, Lieutenant Edgar approached Adolf with a threat, warning him to stay silent about the letter. Adolf, shaken but determined, confided in Blanchard and Ernest. The letter hinted at Lieutenant Edgar's collaboration with the enemy, a betrayal that could endanger all their lives. Blanchard and Ernest, driven by a sense of duty and justice, decided to search Lieutenant Edgar's dugout. Under the cover of night, they found a crumpled letter hidden in the corner, addressed to the German commander Rudolf Bamm. The letter detailed their daily routines and suggested a time and place for an ambush. Meanwhile, Adolf, stationed on the fire step, saw a familiar figure moving towards the German lines. Recognizing Lieutenant Edgar, he followed, witnessing the lieutenant passing an envelope to an enemy soldier. On his way back, Adolf was shot, narrowly escaping death but sustaining injuries that left him scarred. The soldiers swiftly assisted Adolf into the trench, where he received prompt medical attention. Soon, he was resting on his bunk in the dugout. When Ernest and Blanchard returned early the next morning, they were shocked by Adolf's condition. Adolf winced in pain as he described the events of the previous night. He had followed Lieutenant Edgar to the German trench, witnessed him exchanging an envelope with a German soldier, and was injured by barbed wire while retreating. It was clear that Lieutenant Edgar was a traitor. Ernest and Blanchard examined a paper they had found in Edgar's dugout. It was a letter from Lieutenant Edgar to Rudolf Bamm, detailing plans to send 50 men into no man's land for an ambush. Ernest was elated to have this evidence, declaring it their only chance to expose Edgar. Later, Adolf was summoned to see Lieutenant Edgar. Despite his injury, Adolf followed the order. In Edgar's dugout, The lieutenant confronted Adolf about his observations and implied threats if he did not keep quiet. Edgar then ordered Adolf to bring his friends, Ernest and Blanchard, to his dugout. The lieutenant accused Ernest and Blanchard of leaving their post, which they vehemently denied. Edgar's testimony and Adolf's reluctant confirmation led to the two being sentenced to sentry duty as punishment. The night was quiet until German shelling resumed, amplifying the soldiers' fears. Blanchard and Ernest, while on duty, spoke longingly of home. Blanchard mourned for his daughter, Dorothy, while Ernest wished to see his son. Despite their fears, they clung to these thoughts for comfort. In the morning, as the shelling gradually reduced, Adolf lay on his bunk. The lieutenant entered, and Adolf pretended to sit up, but Edgar waved him to stay put. Edgar informed Adolf that he had come to propose a deal. He mentioned that Adolf had left his duty post and could be court-martialed for that, which would only cost him a sheet of paper. Edgar then proposed a deal. He would keep quiet about Adolf leaving his duty post if Adolf kept quiet about the letter. Adolf agreed to the deal after a moment's thought but was concerned about his friends who knew about the letter. Lieutenant Edgar assured Adolf that his friends would be taken care of. Later that night, Blanchard and Ernest were summoned by the colonel, who, with Lieutenant Edgar and Adolf present, accused them of sleeping on duty. Adolf's testimony led to their court-martial, resulting in a sentence of execution at dawn. In the guardroom, Blanchard and Ernest awaited their fate. Blanchard sang a song his mother used to sing, while Ernest prayed. The Reverend arrived to offer last rites, and Adolf entered, apologizing and pleading for forgiveness. Blanchard forgave Adolf, expressing a final wish to see his daughter, Dorothy. Ernest, however, refused to forgive Adolf. Blanchard's wife, Sophie, arrived with Dorothy for a final goodbye. Blanchard took comfort in holding his daughter before his execution. The firing squad carried out the execution at 7 a.m. Adolf, unable to face the reality of his actions, sought out General Marcus Flinch with the incriminating letter. The general confronted Lieutenant Edgar, confirming his involvement in the treasonous plot and ordering a court-martial for him. The general then praised Adolf for his bravery and loyalty, but Adolf felt undeserving of such praise. Adolf left the general's quarters with a heavy heart, despite the praises. Each compliment felt like a knife, deepening his guilt. The general called him brave, but Adolf knew his courage had crumbled. He was praised for loyalty, yet he felt the sting of betrayal. He hadn't defended the truth. He'd let it die. Walking down the dim corridors, the general's words only amplified his self-reproach. His bravery was a facade, his loyalty hollow. One word echoed relentlessly in his mind. He was a coward.